Fantastic. So we're going to keep on the side of pull innovation and talk about startup partnering, or some call it venture clienting, which is the focus of this presentation, and really to show how this is changing the fabric of corporate innovation. And I'm not alone. I brought Lamin.
Hello, everybody.
Who is heading the corporate startup partnerships at Infineon. And my name is Jon. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Glassdollar. We are the matchmaking platform for corporates and startups like Infineon. So I wanted to use this opportunity, or we both wanted to show you some real life examples, not just some theory, but really to go deep into how our collaboration looks like, what came out of it, and how it is flourishing, and hopefully getting some interesting questions from you right after this at the roundtable. So I'm going to start with a hard truth and a brutal fact that no matter who you are, most of the smart people work for someone else. Okay? This means that you cannot possibly have all of the innovation power within your company, right? You might have a great team, great business units that are working on a lot of stuff, but there's always someone out there, and there's many, many more people out there who are probably equally smart, but also just focusing on very specific tasks or use cases to solve. And those guys often work in startups. So there's a reason why the origin of innovation is shifting, right? So more and more innovation power comes from startups, and corporations have identified that, have seen that, and are projecting, as you can see, a huge increase in where the innovation power comes from. So where do the ideas come from that can partly be already validated in the market by the startups? And of course, the question for some of you who maybe are not working in venture capital, which is many of you, but how a corporation can actually use and harness that innovation power, for example, like Infineon does. Just to put this into perspective, of course, Benjamin did a great job in putting it against each other. Where's CVC, where's startup partnering, or venture partnering as you call it. We're calling it corporate startup partnering. And it's basically where you have a high market availability of the solutions in form of startups, and a high compatibility. So meaning that those startups already have a certain product in place that they have developed that you can then use for your corporation. So really there's little co-development or joint venture necessarily involved, because you can already use a lot of the standardized products that startups have already built. And this is by no means better or worse or different, to judge against investing in startups. But there's always a good case to invest in a startup, minority investments, or actually acquire one. And there's often good reasons to really work with a startup on a pure non-equity, let's say, supplier basis, right? Some of those benefits, of course, is that you get fast results, right? You can implement POCs very, very quickly, right? The sort of due diligence, if you want to stay in those terms, that you need to do for those kind of projects is much less reduced, because you're actually running a POC in order to find out whether that solution works for your company or not, which makes it able to validate something within 3 months. It's measurable and scalable. So of course you can measure the impact. This is something that we want to enforce more and more. So at the beginning of the innovation thought or the challenge, already thinking about, okay, how much can this actually bring me? How much impact can this actually make, right? And if it's subcritical, maybe don't even start. So think about this from the onset. What can the business impact be in the end? It's low risk. Very similar to, you don't need to invest a lot of time, but also don't need to invest a lot of money initially, because it's not a huge investment, right? It's a small POC, can start with, one project can be 10 to 50K or so. And then if that goes well, you can go into a long-term collaboration with that startup. And it's universally applicable. So it's not just about product innovation. I know everybody likes product innovation. You want to do new business. You want to create new markets and grow new business lines, for example. But there's so much more, obviously, like the entire digitalization space, which is mostly comprised of enablers, like process automations, cost-cutting activities, and so on. They're not as sexy, obviously, but they can lead to some real results. And so they are really not to be neglected. And again, it's about a well-balanced portfolio of activities, both on the product side, but also on the, let's say, process or enabler side. And that way of working with startups, which is not investing in them, works for all of these different areas. And I would argue, and this is a statement that we can discuss later on, that CVC doesn't work so well for these business enabler topics, right? Where, as Benjamin said, you want to have some data integration, you want to have a platform, a database, and so on. If the startup provides that solution to you, you don't need to own it. You don't even have to have any stake in it. You can just use it, but it's not SAP maybe, something more tailored to your specific. I'm gonna get to your part in a minute. The startup partnering process is very easy, right? I don't want to bore you with like what you probably already know, but I want to show you, one, how simple it is, and two, what we at Glassdollar think where this can should be going. So the process itself is quite easy. You have your challenge. So ideally, you know what to work on. You define your corporate innovation challenge. Then you source, right? So you look outside for the right startup solution. Of course, this is kind of similar to deal flow, to a VC deal flow, but not quite, because you're looking at different kind of metrics. For example, you're looking at reference customers. So you're looking at, has the startup worked with another corporation? Do they know how to speak corporate, how to integrate with corporate systems, and so on? Things that CVC or a fund would typically not necessarily look into because it's not investment related. And then you do the POC, which is, again, simple testing of that solution. And of course, the discipline in the end to really implement it and leverage that innovation power long term. And what we believe is that we can really create a platform, a marketplace, actually, where corporations and startups meet, right? And they meet each other and they get to know each other, basically. So it's less of a orchestrated deal flow, but of course there's some vetting, and qualification involved. Yet the startups can actually present themselves. So what we're envisioning is basically a kind of like an app store, right? An app store for startups, where you can actually see, you browse depending on different categories and what department you want to innovate in, what business metric you're looking at, reduce something, increase something, typically revenue. And based off those filters, if you want, you get the best startups that are currently on the market with their different maturities, of course. How much risk do you want to take? How willing are you that this project may fail, and so on. But this is sort of our long-term vision, and I'd love to discuss this later in a smaller round, or if you have questions on it. Last one, we go into a real-life case of Infineon. I just wanted to mention that there's many corporations that have already started using it. I mean, since 2014 or even earlier, are using exactly that model. Yeah, one example is BSH, Home Appliances Group. They're running by now 35 plus POCs per year, and out of the first, let's say, I think about more than 10 implementations that they have done since end of 2018 when they started, realized, well, not fully realized, but projected and partly realized a business impact of 15 million, right? So it's always important to know what the business impact is, why you're doing it in the end. Calculating it, we propose a methodology how to do that. And of course, the realization comes later and over the years, that's clear, but you need to have a picture of where this is going. And besides MasterCard and MediaMarkt Saturn and many others that are doing this, is of course Infineon, and very much looking forward to that part.
Thanks, Jon. So let's switch a bit. I will tell you a bit about what Infineon is doing in general, why we partner with startups, and then also our relation with Glassdollar. So maybe a few words about Infineon, or first about myself. So I'm basically, so my name is Lamin. I'm based in Munich at the headquarters in a central function. I have a small team of three people, and we are basically facilitating startup corporations at Infineon. So it's about corporations. Yeah, we are not a CVC team. We don't do investments. But we really focus on finding startups to cooperate with. That's us. We have a global setup, so we have a team of 3 in Munich, but then we have people in Asia and also in the US, acting also, dealing with startups a lot. So what is Infineon doing? We are a semiconductor company, a global semiconductor company. Our main products are tiny components, tiny devices. So one is microcontrollers that basically are in all kinds of devices, but then also the actuation part, which means power management. So charging of devices, managing the power flow within a machine, all the electronics you need there. The sensing part, different kind of sensors, pressure, current, radar sensors, all kinds of things like that, yeah, to make machines intelligent and give them senses, so to say. And all that complemented by some hardware security and connectivity solutions, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and so on. So we are basically at the heart of IoT, our products. And as you can imagine, or I'm sure that all of you have devices with Infineon components inside, because they are a lot they could be in your car, or in your smart home, in your mobile phone, in your charger. So you see, we are in many different verticals as a semiconductor company, obviously. And we basically connect the real world, which is represented by the devices, to the digital world, yeah, because we are exactly in this interface. Thank you. All right, and of course, as a semiconductor global company, we manufacture our chips as well. So we are not just designing microchips; we are manufacturing them. So we have a global manufacturing footprint. As all of as in other big corporates as well. Yeah. And now switching to startup corporations. I mean, why we want to work with startups? In a very high level, of course, we want to accelerate innovation at Infineon by working with best startups worldwide. That's on a very high level. But looking at it more in detail, it falls basically into 4 categories, how we work with startups. And I think that's a bit unique of Infineon, this broad variety. I would start from your right side. We work a lot for our business units. We call it a venture supplier model, because essentially we see startups as the system integrators, as our lead customers, because we provide those tiny black boxes, that flow into different devices. So we want to explore with startups new semiconductor applications that will grow in the future. For example, wearables, service robotics, just to give some examples. And what do we want to get with this cooperation? We want to learn, we want to get insights about the system level that startups are dealing with, their market view, but also technical requirements that they need in order to better serve those new growing applications. So that's a very important thing. And of course, if the startup then uses our components in their devices, we have very nice demonstrators that help us to showcase the relevance of Infineon products in those new markets. Yeah, for example, in a service robot, where we can show, for example, the capabilities of our sensors and so on. Very related to that, if we look at, because we are a hardware company, if we look at software side, there are some embedded software companies, algorithm specialists, edge AI specialists that complement nicely our products. For example, we have a radar sensor that gives you some signals, fuzzy signals, yeah. But if you have the right algorithms, you can measure the blood pressure, yeah, by putting the sensor close to your skin. And this is because of the algorithms. And this know-how comes from startups sometimes, and these are the go-to-market partners for us because they help us to address applications in health tech in this case. Yeah. Then switching more to the left side, we have some corporations, really core semiconductor R&D corporations. There are some startups that help to develop next generation of semiconductors, or they have some advanced materials that enable this to make more performant chips, where the outcome would be some IP licensing deal, or they could be even M&A candidates. The probability is high there. And then switching to this topic of startup partnering, as Jon calls it, or venture client model, where we exactly see the potential of startups as innovative suppliers, yeah, to optimize all kinds of internal processes, be it in manufacturing, industry 4.0 topics, but also central functions, optimizing processes in procurement, for example, digitalizing processes. So that's the rationale there, yeah. And it's quite a different type of startup corporation if you compare these type of corporations, where startups are more our customers, and there where we focus on mature startups that have a proven product that worked already with corporates. And you can see the breadth of topics, yeah, that we have to cover. And we cannot do it all ourselves. So our rationale was we have to outsource some of the tasks to professional service providers like Glassdollar, because we don't see our main core competence in identifying the right startups. I mean, we could do it ourselves, yeah. But the question is, are we really better than others in doing that? And I think that's definitely not the case. So we need a reliable partner like Glassdollar who delivers high quality when we give topics outside. They identify relevant startups. And that's why we chose to work with Glassdollar. Because our core competence, where we are better than everybody else, is in the know-how of the internal organization, yeah? So our day-to-day business is internal networking with the business units, with operations, manufacturing, to source the right innovation topics that are of interest, yeah? And then to connect the relevant startups with the right stakeholders internally. This is our core know-how, yeah? And that's where we focus, and all the rest we outsource, yeah? All right. Maybe I say a few words about this, and then I hand over to Jon again. So with Glassdollar, we basically managed to build this venture client or startup partnering track. So using startups as suppliers to optimize processes, we basically ramped it up in a very short time. Yeah. We have a lot of did a lot in the beginning, stakeholder mapping, of course, where we do internal networking to identify where are potential innovation topics that we can cover. And then that was our work, and then Glassdollar helped us to do the sourcings, basically landscapes and benchmark sourcings. And there Jon can tell you a bit more.
Exactly. I just found this rather nice to show because, of course, it's nice to think about billion-dollar markets and huge investments that are going to skyrocket and what the future will look like in 5 to 10 years. But it's also sometimes nice to think about what can you do today or tomorrow, right? And these are the first steps that you would take when you set up this sort of collaboration type, right? You start doing it, you start learning, you start adjusting how it goes, and you start first of all, understanding, of course, your organization. So relying on that knowledge and that expertise that already exists in the corporation, in the business units, and sort of enabling them, motivating them, convincing them, whatever it takes to work on those topics. And there, honestly, it's also about, choosing which wars you want to fight or where you want to get into. And there's some stakeholders which you don't need to start with, and others are more interested, have more influence, are really about open towards these kind of collaborations, and those you should focus on. And then it's really about understanding the startup ecosystem. And I know, again, there's many deal flow, of course, providers or expertise in how to create a deal flow, but that's not quite the same. That's really looking into of course, one is the technology side, which is very related, but it's really about the readiness of startups to actually work with a corporation, which obviously reduces the risk and the time to implementation a lot. And we just brought two really just, say, random or examples, not of the whole portfolio or anything, but just to give you some idea of some of the things that you can be working on, right? For example, because also Benny said before that they're still working a lot with the marketing department, right, next to R&D. And there's a huge potential, of course, in there, both external communication, but also internal communication and training materials and so on, to streamline a lot of, well, in that case, video production or how to convey information. No one likes to read, right? People want to have messages spoken to them in an interactive fashion, of course, in a more dynamic fashion. Of course, that's true for the consumer, but it's also true for the employee because they're also human, right? And so with Synthesia, you can do exactly that, text-to-video solution. So they create synthetic media out of text. They create this avatar. It's much more involved than that, but just on a high level, it saves you a ton of production costs that you would typically have otherwise with producing like fancy videos and so on. And the second one, you can jump in.
The second one comes from the manufacturing environment. Basically, that was typically a stakeholder gave us an innovation challenge. They wanted to automate inspection of some containers of wafers, whether there are splinters in it or forgotten wafers inside the box. So we needed an automated solution because at the moment this is done manually. And as volumes increase, we needed to automate that. So we took this use case, this challenge, gave it basically to Glassdollar in a briefing, and we got then at the end one candidate, Kitov AI, a startup from Israel, and we did a feasibility study, a very positive feasibility study with them in the manufacturing environment. So it's a smart AI-based visual inspection solution that worked quite well. The two examples also show a bit this push and pull, that because that was more the pull. We had a concrete challenge that came from manufacturing in this case. Synthesia was the other way around. No one in marketing said we want to have this solution. So we came with Synthesia. Glassdollar suggested them to us. We looked at it. Cool solution, but now what do we do with it? We had to find some stakeholder, and we distributed it in our network, in marketing, to the people who generate e-learnings as well, to see where could there be any needs for this solution, and it was we found a stakeholder that showed a strong interest. So there you see also this push and pull that can be then played in startup corporations.
Sometimes it's really about inspiring people as well, right? It's not about marketing sitting down and thinking, I need a text-to-video solution. That's not basically the first thing they think of, naturally, no blaming, but by just providing that solution that says, here's a step that helps you to reduce time, reduce cost, reduce effort, and then testing it out, because of course that it doesn't stop with the matchmaking. It doesn't stop with knowing that that startup exists. But then we, of course, support throughout the process of testing, so validating that solution, validating that it actually works with the respective company, in that case Infineon, because Synthesia has, I don't know, hundreds of corporate customers, right? So they're basically well-funded, already quite established. They have their product market fit going through the roof. Everything is fine with them. So we know that their solution works. The question is, how does it work for Infineon? Would it work for Stihl? How would it work for other corporations? That needs to be found out in each case. You do that, you know how it works, and then you can think about, or you start thinking about it before, but then you do the implementation. And so the value proposition is pretty clear. Yeah? Our data shows that you can achieve an implementation rate. So going from your, let's say, 10 POCs, you have on average 4 implementations. Implementation meaning a long-term collaboration with that startup. So it's not just trial and error or just random. Of course, you make a lot of learnings, that's clear, but in the end, you make business impact. On average, 3.3 million per implementation, and that's net impact. So that's already reducing the amount that the corporation pays to the startup, which on average gives you a ROI of above 3, maybe 3 to 4. So, which is not bad given the short time frame that you can get this. So within a year or so, it's actually pretty excellent. So yeah, I think this is from our side. We maxed the time that was given to us. Super happy to receive questions. I think now is the time for the panel discussions. And of course, if you want to learn more about Glassdollar, Infineon, or our collaboration, do reach out to us. I will be here today and also tomorrow. I think you're here today.
Myself as well, yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, very excited about some discussions with all of you guys.
Thank you.